terms of sleeper fights, we've had a lot of them, and maybe the name value's not there, but in a co-main event between Jack Hermansson and Kelvin Gastelum, this is one that gets you out of bed in the morning. This is an exciting fight. Grab a cup of coffee, even though it's going to be at night, and get excited for this one. I guess if you're on Fight Island, grab a couple cups of coffee. So Jack Hermansson went through a wild ride to get to where he is today. I know he lost his last fight to Jared Cannonier. He was beating guys like Talis Ladies. He beat Gerald Mearshart by submission, which was a big deal. He submitted David Branch, which doesn't really happen. And then they said, you know what? Those wins are all great. Here's Jacare Souza. Let's see what you can do with him.
Pretty well.
He looked amazing. He looked amazing against Jacare. Now, Jacare lately, whatever, but still, in that fight, Jack Hermansson looked great. So then they matched him up against Jared Cannonier in a fight that was kind of surprising that that's the way that they went with it. You could say, well, maybe it was a stretch, but maybe if somebody put on a great performance, maybe a title eliminator as a main event at middleweight. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because they threw Yoel Romero in on a couple of losses, and Paulo Costa is waiting in the wings. But Jack Hermansson kind of laid an egg in that fight. And the really telling thing was the fact that that fight was in Europe, and Jack Hermansson was kind of the poster boy for that card, and he didn't put on a great showing.
It was in Copenhagen. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Which is Denmark. He's
I
from
know,
Norway,
but still. It was a short travel for him. It seemed like they were really promoting Jack Hermansson at that time, too, because he had that huge win over Jacare. And I understand Jacare is a little bit in the twilight of his career. He's not even on the back nine. Like, he's on hole 17, and that might be generous. But Jack Hermansson was really able to outdo to Jacare what Jacare does to other people. Now, he doesn't have the power of a Jacare, but push him up against the cage, get him tired, use your volume, and the problem with that performance, though, is I felt like that was the performance where Father Time came up to Jacare and it kind of tapped him on the shoulder. And I understand Jacare can still have competitive performances. He can still do well against higher-level guys. But against guys who are in that Jack Hermansson category who are able to wrestle, or at least wrestle defensively so that Jacare can't take him down, and just outwork him, because Jacare, at no stage in his career did he have the best cardio in the world, but especially now that he's a little bit older, you can really test that gas tank. And Jack Hermansson just really has a good style to fight a guy like Jacare. The Jacare who fought Kelvin Gastelum, on the other hand, was still, like, really good Jacare. It was a very close fight, split decision.
Thought Jacare won that one.
A lot of people did think Jacare won that one because he was very dominant with his grappling in that fight. The difference, though, is the hand speed of Kelvin Gastelum compared to most guys at 185, it's just astonishing. His boxing combinations, second to none. We saw that in the Adesanya fight. And that was another one. We like to bring up losses where you can still gain a lot of stock. Kelvin Gastelum lost Israel Adesanya. He put it on him, though, for a lot of that fight. And they went back and forth. Now, the Darren Till fight was a weird one, though, because it was another one of those fights where you expect fireworks. Darren Till goes out there, puts on a show, win, lose, or draw. Kelvin Gastelum, same thing. Really wear the heart on the sleeve. Was not a great fight, though. And it was really... It showed off the fight IQ.
Yeah, like, here's the reason. Kelvin Gastelum coming off of a big loss to Adesanya. You look at Darren Till, he lost to Woodley, then he lost to Masvidal. You got to go for broke, but neither one of them did.
Exactly.
So it's a pretty boring fight. And if you're a Kelvin Gastelum fan, you're used to him getting in the pocket. He's from southpaw. He can toss you an uppercut. He can throw in a lot of different combinations. There's a lot of things that Kelvin Gastelum does incredibly well. In that Darren Till fight, it didn't show you what you'd expect out of him. It also didn't show you what you'd expect out of Till. Till won the fight. I thought that he won the fight. Oh, yeah. It was not that close, but it was still close enough that people made a case for Gastelum at the time. The trouble is, what Kelvin Gastelum are we going to get? Are we going to get the world beater that all of a sudden was one of the best pure boxers in MMA, that knocked out Bisping, that beat Jacare? It was close, but he beat him. The Bisping fight was a bit of an anomaly. I mean, Bisping had just been finished by George St. Pierre, and then went, you know what? I'm a company man. Let's go main event a card in China on weeks' notice. Like, weeks after the St. Pierre fight notice. I'm sure they paid him, handsomely. And he still has a bit of a role with the company. He's still in the commentary desk. We saw him at UFC 251. He's a legend, former champ. So it's a big win for Gastelum. The trouble I have here is a fight before all of that happened. And it's way back when Chris Weidman was he still good? And we're bridging on 3 years. And the trouble is, if you're going to comment on this fight and you're going to toss it down in the comments, put a lot of stock into that fight, I would hesitate a little bit because Dennis Bermudez was still doing really good things back in that
Darren Elkins in the co-main event.
So we look at this, and Kelvin Gastelum was beaten by a wrestler the way that a wrestler would beat a boxer. He took him down, he got him in that triangle choke, and he beat him. So that's kind of scary if you're a big Gastelum stan, a big Kings MMA guy, and you're looking at this fight for what it's worth. Because for me, I look at the odds in this one. They're close. Gastelum's about a minus 125, minus 130 favorite. And I think that there's value in Jack Hermansson. I know he was on a big streak. He had a loss to Cannonier who got finished. And Gastelum, a lot of people in their minds are going to think, well, he had that war against Israel Adesanya. I expect that out of him every time. Let me break it down for you. Out of the last 5, 3 years ago, roughly, the loss to Weidman. Then he knocks out Bisping. I don't put a lot of stock in that win. Then he beat Jacare barely. He loses to Adesanya in a really competitive fight, and then he loses to Darren Till. To me, yeah, that fight against Adesanya was awesome. To me, Kelvin Gastelum is good. Middleweight's not the home for him because he's a lot smaller than a lot of these guys, but he's never going to make welterweight again. That's pretty clear. I don't see him beating Jack Hermansson here.
I think he beats the brakes off Jack Hermansson. I don't think this fight's very competitive. I think Gastelum's actually a really bad matchup for Hermansson, and this is why. Hermansson's striking is good enough to get him into the clinch. He's a good wrestler, but he's not the submission threat that Chris Weidman is. And I know we like to, make fun of Chris Weidman. He can't take a shot all that well anymore. Gastelum was lighting Weidman up on the feet, and I think Weidman is a better striker than Hermansson. I think what Hermansson does well is he's awkward. And I think that gets him further than it should. Here's the thing, though. If you're trying to strike awkwardly with Kelvin Gastelum, he's going to put you to sleep because his fundamental boxing is so good. He can stand in the pocket. He doesn't even have to move his feet. His trunk movement's really good just from his hips up. And the power in this scenario is not even close. Jack Hermansson's not really a knockout threat. He's a TKO threat. If he can get you on the ground, he does have really good ground and pound. Some of the more underrated ground and pound, I'd say, in the whole division. But we've seen it in some of his fights now. This comparison's not great because one's now a light heavyweight and arguably one of the best light heavyweights, and the other guy's moving up from 170. Look at what Thiago Santos was able to do. Thiago Santos on the ground is just straight up not that good. I mean, Eric Spicer was able to take his back and choke him out, and we've seen a lot of Santos' fights, and listen, there's not a bigger Thiago Santos fan than myself, but his wrestling's not great. And his, at least, ground game off of his back is not that great. Ground and pound's very good, though. Hermansson, A, wasn't able to take him down, and B, wasn't able to control him for any amount of time. And Santos basically exploded once and knocked out Jack Hermansson. Hermansson is very herky-jerky, or inconsistent, I guess the word that I'm looking for, because at his best, he has looked good. But at his best, he's beaten an old Jacare, David Branch, who's no longer with the company. And David Branch in the UFC, we never really get to see the best version of him. The WSOF version was pretty good, but in the UFC, he's left a lot to be desired. He beat Talis Leites in his second last fight. My problem is, Jack Hermansson, it's not like he's out here beating the best guys. And when he did fight Jared Cannonier, when the deck was completely stacked in Hermansson's favor, he laid an egg. I think the problem with Jack Hermansson is, if he doesn't get the takedown, his game is very limited. And against a guy like Gastelum, who I think does have pretty good takedown defense, the problem for Gastelum in the Weidman fight was, Weidman looked like a heavyweight fighting a welterweight. I don't think there's going to be that big of a size discrepancy in this one. I understand Jack Hermansson, he's a big kind of wiry guy for the division, but he doesn't use his reach to his advantage on the feet. Now, you can make as many faces as you want to my right, but if Jack Hermansson goes in there using his weird striking style, just trying to get the fight to the fence, he's going to walk into a big straight left because Gastelum moves his feet. He's not just going to move completely straight back, let Hermansson get him up against the cage like Jacare did, because Jacare, for as good as he is, doesn't really have great cardio, like I mentioned, and doesn't move his feet very much. He's very happy to just stand there, and we'll see who has more firepower. With Gastelum, he's a lot trickier that way. He will slip your shots. He will move his feet, even though he doesn't have to, because his head movement's quite good. And I just don't see how Jack Hermansson wins the fight. I don't think he can submit Gastelum. I know he's got that really awkward, it's not even an arm-in guillotine. It's kind of like an arm-out guillotine. He does it the opposite way. It's very unique to Jack Hermansson. That's what he got David Branch in. He almost got Jacare, which is kind of crazy. But Kelvin Gastelum probably is the best boxing in middleweight. I don't think that's even really arguable. I think there's guys that have better striking than him. But when it just comes into the boxing, I think Gastelum's probably number one. And Hermansson's striking style is just so unorthodox and not really in a positive way. Like Yair Rodriguez is unorthodox, but in the best way possible. Jack Hermansson, he's going to wear himself out, I think, because he goes for so high volume. I think he's going to land or walk into
I think he's going to find a lot of success, and here's why. Kelvin Gastelum trains with some of the best at King's MMA. Queue up heavyweight Khalil Roundtree, Bangkok ready, taking on Greg Hardy. That's coming up soon. But if you look at their overall body of work, you can look at the numbers all you want. You have to kind of change them for the guys that they've fought. So it's interesting to look at them, but you have to take it into account. Strikes landed per minute for Hermansson, 5.1 compared to 2.56 absorbed. But let's look and see who he fought. Talis Leites, not the highest output guy.
Very old.
Gerald Mearshart, submission threat. David Branch, dual threat, but he wasn't in the UFC. Jacare, power shots and grappling. And then if you look at the last fight, Jared Cannonier, power puncher. But you look at the grappling. 2.2 takedowns on average per 15 minutes. That's important because it's against high-level guys. The accuracy's not the best, just over a third of them landing. His takedown defense is good. You're not going to have to worry about it with Gastelum. And he typically averages just under one submission attempt per fight. If you look over at Gastelum, 62% takedown defense, and he has fought good guys that can take it to the ground. But his striking stats are skewed because he fought Israel Adesanya in a wild fight. That's going to weigh heavily on this. But he's fought a lot of really good strikers in the past. If you look at them, they might actually be underwhelming. 3.754 to 3.01 against. That's not a great differential when compared to Jack Hermansson. It just has to be weighted for the fighters that he's fought. The thing for me, though, is the fact that Jack Hermansson, really awkward on the feet. Really weird, unorthodox. The one thing that Gastelum has going for him, one of the best pure boxers in the division. And he's a southpaw. I think that poses a big difference to Hermansson. Hermansson's fought southpaws in the past, though, so it doesn't really bother me that much.
Speed of Gastelum, though.
And overall, I think if he's able to get the fight to the mat, which I think he will be able to do it, and we've seen Gastelum get out of some precarious positions in the past, I could see shades of the Weidman fight from years ago kind of coming back in here. Hermansson getting a win, and then inserting himself right back into that conversation at 85.
I understand the argument that you're trying to make. Just the last thing on the numbers, especially, when you look at the guys Jack Hermansson's fought, none of them mind being taken down. Talis Leites isn't going to defend a takedown very much because he's black belt in jiu-jitsu. Guys like Jacques Ray, they're not going to defend the takedown either. Like, his stats look better. True. It is, though. And in that fight, he got a single leg, went to a double leg, and Jacare was just happy to go to his back. Now, the good thing for Hermansson was he was good enough defensively to not get in any bad positions, but Jacare was just so tired at that point that I don't really think he was much of a submission threat to Hermansson. I really like Hermansson. I like what he does. I think if he were to fight Chris Weidman, the fight that was originally scheduled, he would have made a very good account of himself. And even though Weidman beat Gastelum with this weird little triangle, I just don't think the striking of Jack Hermansson is going to be able to get it done against Gastelum. He's not going to get that first takedown against Gastelum. That's my big thing. Jared Cannonier, who's a big, strong guy, he doesn't have great wrestling defense, though. I mean, Ion Cutelaba was able to take him down multiple times. A lot of guys have been able to take him down. So all Gastelum has to do, I think, defend 2 takedowns. If you can defend 2 takedowns, you're going to force Hermansson to strike with you. And on the feet, I just think they're worlds apart. I think Gastelum will be able to get it done. Very compelling fight, though, because no matter who wins, it's probably going to be really one-sided for that person.
Matt, I'm really looking forward to this one. You're going with Gastelum. I'm going to go with the guy that trains with Kenneth Berg and Emil Mack in Jack Hermansson. Looking forward to the fight. You're not going to want to miss the rest of our predictions for the card, including an extended look coming out very shortly for Joseph Benavidez, Devison Figueiredo, number 2. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.